Well, there's been a lot of interesting discussions about something that's going on in the supercar and exotics and collectible car market. So today we're going to talk about market manipulation. Oh, oh God, where'd that come from?
So are you recording all of the nefarious activities?
If you're new to the channel, my name is Dan, and this is my dealership, MG Supercars. And there have been a lot of videos and a lot of people talking about market manipulation. And is it going on? And is it doing this and that? And are the prices real? And, well, my immediate reaction is, yeah, there's definitely market manipulation going on. But I also think there's some legitimacy to the market. So let's talk about that from our perspective as a dealer, buying and selling lots of these cars, because most of you maybe are buying one of these or not, or just watching from the sidelines. I don't know. But we have actual lived experience. So let's talk about what we as a dealership are seeing, particularly in the Ferrari market, but in the collector car market as a whole. So first off, there is a ton of speculation about manipulated bids on cars and bids and Bring a Trailer. And in particular, there was one story that went nuts. And I think it was a bit unfounded, but there's some validity to it, which is this SLS that recently sold for $775,000. That's not a Black Series. This is not a special edition. It's a regular old SLS. Now, granted, great car, cool car, worth a decent amount of money. $775,000? I'm not going to pay that. And I would argue not too many people are willing to pay that. But one person was willing to pay that. And I think the reason people thought it was manipulation and not a real bid is because of a few things. One, the account's pretty young. It's only created in July. And the second one is that they were doing a lot of those power bids where, it goes from, like, one of their bids took it from, 500 to 700 or 300 to 500. It was a big gap. It was like a $200,000 jump in bids. Now, does that prove manipulation? No, absolutely not. In fact, there's a lot of stuff like Haggerty said that the seller said that they got paid for it. Now, does that prove that the seller and the buyer didn't know each other? No, they could have. But I'm not making that accusation at all. I don't think that is the case in this particular example because maybe it's just a really excited guy. He just really wanted an SLS with very low miles and a good history. And if so, maybe they believe, and maybe they're smart enough. So maybe they know that the SLS is going to go up in value, and so they don't care. They just wanted that super clean, pristine, low mile example, and they were going to pay whatever it took to get it. Who knows? Now, what are the different types of market manipulation that we could be seeing? Well, the one that I think is catching the most interest right now is shill bids, or I would say like relational bids, I guess would be a good term for it. So the way that works is, so let's say I want to sell a car on Bring a Trailer, and I want to get a good number for that car. But here's the trick. I don't actually want to sell it on Bring a Trailer. I want to sell it after Bring a Trailer. So what I do is I call up my buddy, and I say, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to list this thing at auction on Bring a Trailer, and I want you to bid the shit out of it. Go up as high as you can. And when you buy it, or when the transaction closes, you're going to get hit with the fees that they're going to charge you. So it's going to be their maximum fee or whatever, however many thousands of dollars it is. I think it's like 7 right now, or I don't know. We don't bid on those systems very much, so I don't know the details of it. But somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. So I'm going to pay you that plus maybe some "you're my best friend" fee to do that. So you go bid up my car, and it comes to some way higher than a number than the rest of the cars on the market. Let's say I'm selling a Ferrari 458, and the market seems to be around like $400,000 for a clean low mile example. And so you bid it up to $600,000. And now what happened is there is a record that this transaction happened at $600,000. So everyone's going to look up that VIN in the future and say, it sold for $600,000 on Bring a Trailer. Oh my God, that's what it's worth. But in reality, you and I have an agreement. You didn't actually buy the car. I just paid you to do that and made sure that you weren't out anything. So I paid off your fees. So you paid Bring a Trailer. So you're out nothing, and I give you some extra money. I let the car sit on my lot off to the side for another couple months until people have forgotten about that crazy transaction. And now I list it for sale. Or maybe we even have an agreement where you have a dealership too, and you sell it through your dealership. So we do a dealer-to-dealer wholesale transaction, and you sell my car for me on my behalf, because we can paper up stuff between dealers to dealers just like it's nothing. So then that car does actually sell for 600, 650, because maybe the market's even gone up by then, 650, 700, who knows? But we put that stake in the ground. We have now published evidence of that transaction at some high amount. And I think that's going on. That is absolutely likely to be going on. People are colluding to bid up a particular vehicle, and then they make some sort of agreement where the car doesn't actually ever get registered to the next owner. And the way to do that in particular is through dealerships to dealerships, because we don't actually register cars. So as a dealer, when I buy a car wholesale from another dealer, there's no documented evidence on Carfax or anywhere else that that transaction happened other than the paperwork between me and that dealer. So whether or not we actually did that, no one else knows but me and them. So that's one way that you could absolutely manipulate the market. And there's probably not a whole lot of recourse or way that anyone else is going to find out if that actually does happen. Now, I think that's the biggest thing that's going on. Now, are there simply irrational or exuberant bidders right now? And I think that's emphatically yes. People, again, I've said this tons of times lately, the current market is on a tear because people are realizing that this particular type of car will never exist again. In particular, the late 90s to early 2000s and 20-teens. Those cars were a particular time, especially in the supercars and exotic cars world. Nothing like that is ever going to exist again. They just can't ever do it again. Between emissions and regulations and all sorts of other crap that's come out since then, cars like this will never happen again. And unfortunately, that means that whatever is out there is all that there is available. And every day, more of them get modified or molested or wrecked or somehow disappear or are gone forever. So there's less and less of them every day. The other thing is that those cars are really quite impressive cars. They're the cars that arguably have some of the most engagement, most excitement, and the most fun to drive, the best experience. Because, yeah, new stuff's faster. No one's arguing that. You can definitely go faster, but does that mean it's better? Is faster always better? I don't know. I'm going to argue no, because there's a reason why people are paying more for gated cars than F1 transmissions, because it's more of an experience. People want that engagement. They want that you drive the car thing where it's not some computer managing the car for you. So, yes, there's definitely some manipulation going on, probably like I just gave you an example. There could be other ways of people doing it that I'm not aware of, because honestly, I'm not thinking about that every day. I don't have the time, and I'm not trying to manipulate the market, and frankly, I don't have the finances to manipulate the market. So I'm just a regular old dealer trying to buy and sell cars like the good old-fashioned way, buy it for slightly less than I can sell it. So that's where we can get to the hard data that I know from my actual experience, and I can tell you that, yeah, prices have gone up a lot, especially in the last few months. So we have actually bought and sold many, many cars in the last few months. In fact, it's kind of nuts for us. We are buying and selling cars at faster paces than we ever have in this company's entire history. Cars that we buy, we tend to sell in hours, not days, hours, sometimes even minutes. We have sold cars in as few as 30 minutes from our acquisition to the time that we have a signed agreement. And 20 of those minutes is making paperwork. I'm not even kidding. This is happening. So people are saying then, well, you're charging too little, which maybe we are. But what I'm going to argue is we are charging prices that are appropriate because the cars are selling and people are willing to pay it. If you price it too high, there are people who are out there doing this. They're making speculative listings. So let's go back to the 458 as an example. So let's say we go out and we buy a 458 that we currently think is going to sell for somewhere around $400,000 retail. So I want to buy that car somewhere in the 300, let's say 380 range would be great. So I can make 20 grand on that car minus my other costs. So I'm going to make 15 grand once all is said and done, right? So that's a good deal for me. I'm happy to do that, especially if I can sell that in a day. So I can either try and shoot for the moon, let's say sell it for, or list it, I should say, for $500,000, and maybe I'll find some sucker who's willing to pay it. Or I list it for $400,000 and it's sold like that. So from my perspective, that's what I want. I minimize my risk, because what happens if the market changes? I minimize my interest, I minimize my insurance, and the car is in and out, and I don't have to worry about, does it break while it's here? Does something go on? Whatever. 1,000 other things. So anytime you can turn a car over faster, it's always better. Now, yeah, sure, I wouldn't mind selling that car for $500,000 and making $115,000 instead of $15,000. But I think I'm going to sit in that car for months, potentially years. It might not even ever sell at that price. So now we found historically, when we price cars too high and we lose that initial listing momentum, it's really hard to sell the car. So historically, when we sell cars, we tend to sell them within the first 1 to 2 weeks, or it takes 1 to 2 months. And there's nothing in between. And it's because you get that car listed, it gets the initial oomph, everyone sees it first hit the market, there's a lot of interest, people are making deals, we have multiple people interested, whatever. It's all going in the right direction, and then you close on the deal and hooray. But if you don't, now suddenly that car's been sitting there. People keep seeing it over and over. They look up the listings every few days or every week or whatever, and they see the same car, and it's at this crazy price. Now I don't want to pay that. And then they see it again and again and again. And eventually I have to cut the price because no one's buying it. So I cut the price. Blood in the water, the sharks are coming out. Oh, they're cutting the price on this thing. It's time for me to swoop in and kill and get the cheap car. They don't, they've had it too long. I don't want to be in a position where I've had the car so long that I have to fire sale it just to get rid of it. Honest to God, most of the times when we've had cars that have sat for a while, we end up selling them for less than offers that we got in that first few hours or weeks versus, later on. So anytime a car is sat, it's always a lower price than we initially got. It's very rare that we actually get a better price after 1 or 2 months than we have in that first 1 to 2 weeks. Now, it's not always true, but that is a fairly common thing for us. So yes, we are seeing these cars at these higher prices transact, not at the crazy prices. So when you see these cars that are, they're like 2 sigma off the standard deviation, they're way the hell out there. I saw a 458 that was $700,000. This wasn't like delivery miles. This wasn't a Speciale. This wasn't like the highest option car I've ever seen. It was just a 458 Spider with like 3,000 miles. $700,000. That car 2 months ago would have been maybe $400,000. I don't know that anyone's going to pay $700,000 for that car, but maybe they will. I don't know. I can't predict the future. But what I can tell you is if they had listed that car probably closer to 5, it would have sold already. And they would have probably some pretty good profit. Now, again, this presents a huge challenge from a dealership perspective because people are seeing the $700,000 car listed. They're seeing these outrageous 2 sigma off deviation cars out there, and they start thinking, my car is worth way more than it actually is. So we have a very hard time trying to bring reality to the situation. We have to tell people, well, yeah, so same guy is trying to sell that same car to me, let's say, the one we just talked about that's, going to be worth actually around $400,000. I talk to him and he wants to sell it to me for $500,000 because I sell that $700,000 car. And the problem is I'm going to be like, no, you're insane. I can tell you from the cars that I've actually bought and sold recently that that's not what your car is actually going to sell for. Your car is actually going to sell for something substantially less. So I now am playing this game of convincing them the reality of what I'm actually seeing, but they have to believe me or not. And so far, some of these people are not believing us, and that's fine. But other people are, and then we can actually make a real transaction. And usually, these people are pretty happy because they're already up a substantial amount on the value of this car compared to what it was even just a few months ago. Yeah, real life example. Just the craziness of how the market is. One car I know for sure. My old Scud. My salvage title Scud that I bought a little over like a year and a half ago or whatever, and I owned for a couple months, and we fixed it up and sold it. I sold that car for around $200,000. It is listed for sale right now for $450 or $475,000. So who knows if they'll get that or not? Good luck to them. I don't know, but that's the reality of the market. Will it actually transact? I do know. Apparently, that car was listed for 450 and did actually transact, and then someone else listed it for 475. So where it's sold, I don't know. We obviously don't know the real data of what it actually transacted, but it probably sold north of $400,000. So we have data to show, yeah, these cars are actually buying and selling at these crazy amounts. Again, there's a lot of factors going into it. There's also a lot of data to suggest people are pulling their money out of the financial markets and putting them into tangible assets. We've seen that happen in the past. It happened during COVID. It's happening, I think, again now. People want these physical things that are actually there. That, this is an asset that I could now physically see. Here's my thing. They're cars. I don't think people should be buying cars as investments, generally speaking. There are some examples that would suggest otherwise. But ultimately, you should be buying these cars because you want to enjoy the car, because you've always dreamed of the car, because you want to go drive the car, because you want to experience what this car is like. You want to enjoy the things that these cars can offer in life experiences. Those are the things that I think money can buy in these cases. Literally, money can buy you a Ferrari that does offer these fun, enjoyable, satisfying experiences. And so to me, I've said this for probably about a decade now, is would I spend all this money on a car to have it for a while, to basically have it provide me the opportunity to meet people, enjoy driving, create new friendships, create new experiences, and basically offer like a vacation anytime I want. I can get in this car and have fun on a Thursday afternoon. That's amazing. That is actually worth a lot to me. So yeah, they offer all of these things and they offer value. But should you expect it to go up? I mean, who knows? Maybe. I think there's a lot of data to suggest historically they will. Are we going to see the current prices continue to go up? I think we're already kind of seeing it plateau. That's my current feeling, is the current prices went up so fast that I think they're kind of stopping. They're kind of at a level plane now. It's not really going up anymore, so it's not going to continue this crazy trajectory that they were on. Are we going to see them dip? I think that's quite a real possibility. We might see a small dip, but it's not going to be going back to where it was 2-3 months ago. I think you might see it come down maybe even like 10%, but you're not going to see it come down 50% or something like that. That's just my guess. That's just because, again, I feel like there is so much buying momentum and not enough supply. So it's basic supply and demand equations, and what we're seeing is a dramatic lack of supply and a crazy amount of demand. And so that suggests that it's not going to dip at the moment. Now, demand would have to stop, or the other possibility is prices have come up so much that it inspires people to be like, oh man, I'm up X dollars or X percent on my car that I bought X years ago. I might as well cash it in, right? Like, I made a ton of money on my car. Look at me. I'm such an investor, bro. Oh, yeah. Don't be that guy. Anyway, so are we seeing market manipulation? I think absolutely yes. Are we seeing the values of these cars be higher? Yes, absolutely. There is one other thing that we didn't talk about that has been mentioned, and I think this is also a function that's helping the situation get these prices, and that is the free market. I just mentioned demand and supply. Very limited supply, tons of demand. What we have seen is certain companies and certain individuals have scooped up all or most of a particular car in a particular market. So we've seen people buy up every single Speciale, every single Pista, every single Challenge Stradale, every single special Ferrari you could think of that was on the market, and basically capture the entire market and then dramatically increase the prices. Is that market manipulation? I'm going to say no. By definition, that is actually capitalism. That is the free market at play when it's unregulated. So anyone who's got a ton of money, when there's only 5 of a particular car on the market, you could go out and buy all 5 of them and turn around and list them for a lot more money and do that. You could basically create a monopoly because the market's that small. It doesn't take that much other than a ton of money. Obviously, the capital intensity of this particular strategy is quite high, but it's entirely doable. When there's only 3, 4, 5 of these cars on the market, it's not that hard of an equation to make it so that you can buy up the entire thing, dramatically increase the prices, throw them back on the market, and make a ton of money. Absolutely. That can happen. I don't think that's market manipulation. I think that is interesting capitalistic strategies. Basically a monopoly. Good on them for figuring that out. But I think that's obviously another factor that's happening. And when that happens, the problem is if you release the cars slow enough, you're going to keep the prices high. If you dump them all on the market at one time, it may not quite have the effect. But these cars, again, extreme demand, limited supply, eventually someone who really has to have that car is going to have to pay for it if they want it. And that's just how it is. All right, so let me know your thoughts. Let me know examples. Are you seeing clear examples? Because that's the thing is there's not really any proof, any hard evidence of this happening as far as the market manipulation on the auction platforms. There's a lot of people speculating on it. There's a lot of soft examples. Even this SLS example, people tried to prove it, and I don't think it really happened. They didn't really have data that says, yeah, this is a clear example of it. In fact, it's kind of proving to be not. So do we have other examples? Put in your comments below. Let me give you your thoughts. But that's it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And please do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe. And check out normalguysupercar.com and NG Supercars, our dealership website. We do appreciate all of your support, and we will see you in the next video. We're going to be doing a lot of cool car stuff. You're going to want to stay tuned. It's going to be sweet.